Hello everyone, and welcome to our discussion on some key features in Design Manager that can really enhance your overall experience with the program. My name is Brad, and I'll be hosting a demonstration today. If you have any questions during the webinar, feel free to enter them into the questions pane in your GoToWebinar panel. If the question is outside of the scope of today's discussion, please email them to support@designmanager.com. And lastly, if you miss a portion of the demonstration, you can always go to our Help Center at knowledge.designmanager.com, click on the Webinars menu, go to Recorded Webinars, and then you can view any of our past discussions at your leisure. In this week's webinar, we're going to be focusing on some simple yet overlooked features in Design Manager that can make your data entry more rapid, provide information more readily, or otherwise improve your overall Design Manager skill set. Some of the areas we discussed may be known to you already, but I hope to point out at least a few features that are previously unknown to all of the attendees. As usual, I'll be showing features in Design Manager and Design Manager Professional. If you want to see one in a function in one platform or the other, just ask in the questions pane. And remember, some features may only be available in one version of the software or the other. Let's begin today's discussion by reviewing some overall functionality in Design Manager, of which some users may not be aware. Remember, however, there are some innate differences between how Design Manager Cloud and Design Manager Professional Cloud are structured, which is going to determine to the degree to which some of these recommendations are beneficial. Let's begin with some features that I consider ease of use, starting with toolbars. Both Design Manager and Design Manager Professional has a set of toolbars. Those are ours in Design Manager and Design Manager Professional. Now, for the most part, these are going to be more than applicable or more than suitable for most users. But know that you can move your toolbars around by grabbing, dragging. You can add additional toolbars. So in Design Manager, we have our standard set of functions, but we also have a toolbar for glossaries. And there they are. So if I want easy access to all of my glossaries, I can do so. And again, I can drag that, stick it along the side. However, you can also do some additional functions. Let's say that I want to have an additional button to make it contacting support for Design Manager quite easy. Well, I can right-click, select Customize, and then on the commands, I could go down to our Tools menu, Help menu, Contact Support. I could literally just drag that onto my current toolbar, and there we go. And if I just click Contact Support, it'll automatically take me to my Help Center, ready for me to make an incident for our technical support. Just that easy. If I don't want to have that button there any longer, or I want to reset my settings to the defaults, there we go. Add a remove button, standard tools, reset toolbar, and there we go. Now the Professional has the same set of functions. So we could add additional toolbars if we wanted to. We can add buttons and those types of things. But Professional has another option beneath it called our Quick Functions. Notice the little downward-facing arrow next to the Design Manager icon. We can click on that and add commands to our toolbars, just like we did in Design Manager. So, just like we did, let's say if we want to add our contact support to our custom project menu. Well, we can do that by selecting our file, contact support, add, and now I have my contact support easily identifiable on my quick access buttons. I can remove it just by right-clicking and selecting remove. And I can also add buttons to my toolbar here as well. So if I wanted to contact support, and let's say I want to put that on my project management, I could do that as well. Notice there it joins it on the right-hand side, and I can see the button there. And I'm using the contact support to show that how we can easily customize your toolbar buttons, and also to let you know that feature does exist in Design Manager to make it contacting our technical support team quite easy. So again, in Professional, we can add buttons to our toolbar, or we can add buttons to our quick access very easily as well. Now, let's take a look at some other features. For one, columns in Design Manager. All of the columns in Design Manager can be sorted, and by default, you're going to see one of the columns will have a little set of arrows, usually facing to the right, meaning it's going in ascending order. In the case of reference number, numerically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, etc. If you click the column heading again, it'll sort it, the arrows move to the left, and you're sorting in descending order. In this case, 12, 11, 10, etc. But any of the columns can be sorted by, even description, status, etc. While we're sorting a column, we can also search a column. So if we're sorted by reference number, and I want to jump down to reference number 12, I simply need to start typing. By typing the number 0012, Design Manager is automatically going to portion that to myself. And you can even do it with the description. If I wanted to find one of my sofas, I can just start typing the description, and I jump right down there as well. And the same works in Design Manager. Let's take a look at our project and specifications. Notice in Design Manager we have our grid on the right-hand side, and it's always going to be synchronized with our tree on the left-hand side. So if we're looking at our items, for example, I'm already sorted in reference number. If I wanted to jump down to reference number 24, just start typing, and there we go. And again, even with our description, by clicking the column heading, I'm now sorted in description order, and I can jump down to our bed just by typing the first few characters. Very convenient way to navigate ourselves through our grids. Professional has an additional benefit on a few different windows. Let's take a look at our How About Vendor Invoice window. Existing tab. And as professional users know, this is going to be where all of your previously entered vendor invoices, deposits, and operating expenses are going to be displayed. Let's say I want to focus just on entries for Verizon as an example. So I could sort my vendor code, sort my grid by vendor code, and then notice when I type the first few characters of Verizon, Design Manager narrows what's displayed upon the grid just to those vendors that satisfy. So it really narrows your scope of what you're reviewing to a much more manageable area. And that's the same in a lot of grids in the professional platform. Now, this feature, in conjunction with another tip we're going to discuss in a moment, makes for a really powerful tool. Let's take a look at some other features. The concept of right-clicking in Design Manager. So on most of the grids, I can use the right-click event to access a variety of different functions that are applicable to the particular grid. So if we right-click on our specifications grid, I could add a new item. I could edit the current item. I could even attempt to delete the item. In this case, I can't because I have a proposal attached with it already. Another recently added feature is the ability to export a grid. And this is going to be available for almost all of the grids in the software. If I select Export, Design Manager is going to allow me to create a true Excel worksheet. In this case, I'm going to call it my project of CAR02 in the specifications. which I've already exported just to save a little bit of time, and we can see it here. And this is going to export all of the grids with the grid headings and all of the information as it exactly appears on the platform. So here's all of the items that correspond to what we're just looking at on our specifications grid. An extra benefit is we have the ability to include the pictures. So notice that my final column is for an image. And if I simply select that image file, I can jump right to a copy of the picture associated in Design Manager. So that's a very nice feature to have all of our items listed with their associated image files embedded so we can link or jump right to them. Design Manager has some additional functions with the right-clicking. Let's take a look at our project specifications. Now, since Design Manager is designed for smaller firms with a little bit less compartmentalization for the specialization of labor than companies using the Pro platform might use, the right-clicking is even further enhanced to allow a little bit more access to a variety of functions, making the software seem a little bit more fully integrated. So, look at what happens if we right-click on our item for our California King bed. Very similarly, we have entries for editing and deleting. I can also add additional objects here, such as a new project, a new item, a component for this existing item, or even locations. I can copy the item, which we'll discuss shortly, but I even have the ability to use some go-to events. Well, what are these? Well, notice that this particular item has a lot of accounting activity attached to it. Proposals, purchase orders, invoices, etc. So if I quickly wanted to get to the proposal associated with the item, I can use my documents in accounting, go to proposal 1, and there I am. And from here, I could take my proposal and reprint it or view the status, etc. So Design Manager allows me to quickly jump over to the document associated with that particular item. I could do the exact same thing with, let's say, the purchase order. I needed a copy of the purchase order for the vendor. I can just use my go-to, and just like that, Design Manager has me positioned there, really allowing us to move around the software with a lot more speed and fluidity than you might imagine. Double-clicking, of course. Most of the grids allow us to double-click and fire off an event. Usually, it's going to be the button that's associated as the default, which is indicated by the highlighted border around that button. So if I double-click on the grid here, it's going to edit. And there we go. That's we're looking at our sofa. And the same with Design Manager. I could double-click on my armchair, and I'll bring up the edit button there for the item. Another event in Design Manager Professional only as far as using grids are right-clicking on the status column. All of my color-coded statuses are listed here, and I can easily change them by simply right-clicking that column, selecting the desired status, and I can change it that way as well. And that's more of a singular event on this particular window. But I like to point it out as people often ask our technical support department about that. Moving around a particular window, we don't necessarily need to click into each of our various fields. Design Manager is laid out very intuitively, so if you use your Tab key, it'll flow through the software. So if I hit my Tab key, I'm going to move from my client description to my location, quantity, unit of measure, my budget fields, sales category, and even onto my Add button. You can see there's now a slight border around the Add button, meaning that's got the focus. And if I go ahead and click the Enter key here, I'm going to start adding. So you can really become quite adept in using combinations of your Tab key, Enter keys to really manipulate the software quite rapidly rather than having to go back and forth to the mouse. few other hidden features here, or often overlooked features. One, as many of you may know, we do have a spell check for all of your description fields, and you can certainly just click on that to get to your spell check for your descriptions, etc. But you can also just use your Alt-C key to also bring up your spell check. Along with your Alt-C for your spell check, we have our search glossary, but that can be automatically enabled simply by using the Alt-S when the search is visible. Just like that, I could bring up my location search. So again, you can minimize moving your hands off of onto the mouse and keep it on the keyboard for a very natural and quick, fluid flow. Let's combine a couple concepts here for another interesting feature. Notice that I'm in my client description, and there is actually, my search is enabled here. Any of the formatted fields, description, remarks, etc., they also have a glossary associated with them, which we call our remarks glossary. And quite commonly, you may have a variety of proposal remarks or invoice remarks that you may want to easily access, and you can use the remark glossary to do so. And here's an example of one I have for my invoice. But some firms have a very regimented way they want to have descriptions displayed on those documents. So notice, I've created a description template, and if I choose that into my client description, I've created a framework of particular attributes that I want to have entered: dimension, style, finish, color pattern, etc. And I can just put in the appropriate description right here. So it allows me to sort of create a nice framework that allows me to have a very consistent appearance on all of my descriptions. And I've seen some very creative ways to use the remarks glossary, and this is one of those examples. Some other searching features. Dates as an example. Let's imagine we're going to make an operating expense as a quick example. Notice, any date field will also have a glossary associated with it. Then you can easily select today's date or any date in the 3-month pattern. If you need to go out farther, you can do so. You can return to today's date, go in the past. What I find even more convenient sometimes is inputting the date manually. Now, I've often seen people put in month, the date, the year, which is all additional keystrokes. All you need to do in Design Manager is simply enter the month, a space, the date, and upon hitting Tab, Design Manager will format it for you. So you don't have to put in the slashes and those things yourself. It may seem like a trivial example, but that will save you a lot of time in the long run. Let's use this guy as an example. Let's say we have some computer supplies. I'm going to enter in an expense for our ABC computer supply. When I click the Add button, as many of you know, I'm going to have to enter in an account. Basically, where should this expense be recorded? Notice I already have my office supplies coming up. That leads us to another extremely helpful feature. My ABC computer supply vendor, as we can see on our vendor search or glossary, edit, on the Defaults tab, I've associated an expense account with that particular vendor. A very handy tool, particularly for your expense vendors. That way, I don't need to remember to use the 62100 office supplies account. By configuring my vendor properly, Design Manager will automatically use it for me. So I don't have to think about what account I want to use, and I'll be consistent with my expenses. So that's a very handy tool that's often overlooked. Let's imagine that this was, I don't know, $100. And here's our operating expense, which leads us to another handy trick. This is the OK Add button. Now, many of you know that we have the Cancel button. We have the OK button, which would simply save the record. But the OK Add not only saves our operating expense for ABC Computer Supply, but keeps our window up for us for additional entry. So if I click OK Add, I'm saving my ABC Computer Supply operating expense, but I'm ready to enter another one. And let's say I have one for Verizon. This might be, I don't know, August 2016. This is our August bill. Again, I already have my expense for Verizon configured, making my life a lot easier so I don't need to remember or select the account for me. And I can just put in the amount of my bill. 105 is just fine. And now if I click OK, I can see my entry for Verizon, but we also have our entry for ABC Computer Supplied. So the OK Add is extremely helpful when entering in fiscal transactions, etc. But it's not only there. You also can get to the OK Add in a variety of places, just like, very conveniently, when we're adding in items. Notice there's our OK Add button. And even easier, on our components. It really minimizes unnecessary keystrokes and allows you to get your data entered a lot more rapidly. The Pro has an additional spot for the OK Add. Under Accounting, Cash Receipts, we have our Add button. Let's put in a project for our Hilsons. Let's say that we're paying off, we've received payment on our invoice 10,005. So they gave us a check. Notice I'm using my Tab key again. I could select my invoice. I may have a stack of checks, hopefully I do, from all of my clients. So using the OK Add on the cash receipt button, cash receipt window, pardon me, is extremely convenient in my opinion. Click OK Add here. I'm saving my payment from the Hilsons. Let's say I go to the Carter's Brigantine Beach Home. Perhaps they gave us another retainer. Give us into our Visa. Put in our 5,000, additional retainer, and there we go. And I could go through my entire stack of receipts quite rapidly. And here's my cash receipts waiting to be posted. OK Add on the cash receipt window in Professional. Very convenient. We'll post those guys through. Another example or helpful information about Design Manager that you may not know. Design Manager inherently is a multi-window program. So I don't need to close my cash receipt window and then go ahead and open another. Notice I've got my vendor invoice window still down in my toolbar for my access. I could have my vendor deposits open. I could have my specifications up and running. Minimize them so I can access them along the bottom of the program itself. I can even have reports up and running. Let's say I have my profit analysis for one of the Carter's projects. I can have that up. So I've often been surprised how many Design Manager users don't know that you can have multiple windows open simultaneously. And you can also use your view area to arrange these particular windows. I could tile them vertically. I could cascade them, which sort of puts them back into a natural progression. I can use the Switch To feature. Say I want to get back to my specifications, I can use Switch To jump right to it. So you don't get lost in all of these windows. It depends on how much information you like to have in front of you. The View tab allows you to rearrange the windows and access the one you want quite quickly. And the same with Design Manager. You can have your documents accounting open. You may have your employee time open. You may have a report open as well. Profit analysis. Took me a little bit to find that. There's our profit analysis report. And just like in Professional, we can go to our window. We can easily select the window we want to get to. So don't feel like you have to constantly close one window and open another. Design Manager is intended for you to have multiple windows open if that is your preferred way of working. Now, notice, it took me a moment or two to find the profit analysis report in our Design Manager report window. On a Professional platform, I could find it quite easily because I have my favorites already configured. Design Manager has literally hundreds of reports used to run your business. Many of them simply might not be informative or useful for your particular experience in Design Manager. You may be a designer or a principal. Some of the accounting information might not be necessary. You may not have inventory, those types of things. But using the favorites allows you to have the reports that you want to use easily accessible. So I've already attached my profit analysis report, and I've even created a folder for weekly reports for my aged accounts receivable and aged accounts payable reports, so I can quickly review those on a weekly basis. Let's see how to do so. Notice on Design Manager, the Favorite Reports is an additional tab along the top, which I don't have anything configured right now. If I do want to add my profit analysis, I simply highlight it and click Add to Favorites. And there it is. And I could create a new folder. And this would be my weekly reports. And then I could add in my aged accounts receivable right to my weekly reports, and perhaps my aged accounts payable as well. So I have my custom list of favorite reports, and those are for myself. So when I log into Design Manager, I have my own set of favorites. One of my coworkers logs in with their account, they'll have their own as well. So it really is catered to reports that are important to you. Let's see here. A couple other features. Pictures in Design Manager. Many of you know you can associate an image with an item or component in Design Manager, and it's quite easy to do so. So let's imagine that I have a new item for a pendant light, and I want to associate a picture of the pendant light that I found perfect for this client. Simply go to the Picture tab. Then I can go out to the vendor's website or any copy of the image on my computer. Copy. Return to Design Manager, and I can use my paste image from clipboard to easily bring it in. It's just that simple. And now notice it's being shown in my picture frame along my Design Manager vision. From here, I could change the image. I could load it from my computer, or I could copy in another one. So I could have my item highlighted along my Design Manager project specifications, and I could change the image right from here as well. Very convenient way to manipulate, add, edit, and change your images in Design Manager. For those of you who are really paying attention, I talked about another very handy feature in Design Manager a little while back, copy and pasting items. Let's imagine that we have our pendant light that we just created, and the Carters love it in their Pennington home, and they want the same one down in their Brigantine Beach home. Rather than retyping all of our information, which depending on our description and the amount of detail we want, could be a lot of data entry, I can copy the pendant light, go down to the Carter's Brigantine Beach home. Let's put that right in the outdoor living area by pasting. And just like that, I've replicated the pendant light from one project to another. This can save a tremendous amount of data entry if you have even similar items being used between projects. And our professional clients has the same feature. Let's go back to our specifications. Let's say that we're going to have some of these pillows that are working great for the Carter's Pennington home, and we want to put them into our Hilson project. Professional platform, we do need to go to the Tree View tab. Notice I've already have my item highlighted, and I can copy here. Then I just want to change my project to the Hilsons. We'll put that in the wine cellar and paste it right in. And there we go. I've got my pillows added quite easily. So copy and pasting items, very convenient method to quickly get data replicated between projects or even within a single project. If the particular clients are getting multiple versions of pillows or accessories or furniture, put the item in one location, copy it, put it into another. You can save yourself valuable time doing so. Specification Search. Besides being a powerful tool when analyzing the status specifications or monitoring profitability, Spec Search can also be used to quickly find an item or component based on certain criteria. Let's take a look. For those of you who are not familiar with the Specification Search, go to your Project and Specifications in Design Manager and hit the Search button. And it brings up our Specification Search window. And let's imagine that I want to find our pendant light again. And I have so many projects that I can't remember which one I've included it. So I can drop down our list of parameters, which as you can see has tons of information from which you can use to search your various specifications. Very conveniently, I can just use the item description. And I want to find anything that has the word pendant in it. By clicking Find, Design Manager will immediately go out and look at every single specification in your software and track down all of those that are pendant lights. And from here, I can use the Go To button, get right to my pendant light, so perhaps I could then copy and paste into another project. And professional users, of course, you'll have the same feature. Your Specification Search is located off the Specification window and the Spec Search button. You can go ahead and easily see all of your items, for example, for a particular project. And again, you have the ability to use the Go To button to populate and position right to that item on your specification window. You can edit from here. You can edit the component from here. And again, you can export this information out as well. Now, Spec Search is fantastic for specifications, so you're probably wondering if something exists for our accounting side of things. Well, of course, we have one of those as well. The Transaction Search, as we call it, is located in Professional, off of your Accounting tab, General Ledger Frame, Transaction Search. And you can see how you can enter in a wide variety of different parameters, and you'll receive all of the accounting transactions. So I might want to see anything I've entered in for Verizon, and just by hitting Find, I can see all of the expenses and checks that I have written for Verizon to date. And again, we can use our Go To button to immediately get to that particular transaction. You can export from here, you can print as well. So there is a lot of ways in Design Manager to use these Go To buttons to quickly navigate the software without having to hunt and pick and find your way around. The tools are all there to allow you to quickly manipulate your way through the software. Now, I find the Specification Search and Transaction Search is extremely convenient. And in Design Manager, your transaction search is located, as you might imagine, off of your Documents and Accounting window, and you would click the search button here, and you can see your transaction search. And the two windows are very similar in both platforms. Because I find these windows so important, we actually have a very own webinar just on our specification and transaction search, where I go into great detail on using these windows to their maximum efficiency. Okay, so we introduced the concept of the go-to buttons. Well, the go-to buttons are not just only on your transaction windows, they're located strategically throughout the softwares. Let's take a look at the checking window is a great example. So if we go to our checking window in Design Manager, notice I have my go-to button. So let's imagine the Verizon entry that we just put in, whoops, it wasn't 105, it was supposed to be 150. I could certainly go through my Documents and Accounting window and navigate to Verizon and make my appropriate changes, but right from my checking window, I can use the go-to button and let Design Manager do the work for me. Automatically positions me to my operating expense, and I can just edit and make my change. See, my amount goes up to 150, as is my amount due, and just like that, Design Manager is going to reflect that update back on our checking window. Very quick way to get through the software. And there's some more. Let's take a look at some credit card activity, for example. So here is a bill from Century Furniture that I entered in using my American Express card. And I might not be able to find that on my statement, or I want to have some additional documentation for whatever reason. Well, I've got a go-to button here as well. So if I'm at my credit card activity tab, just get my go-to, and again, Design Manager jumps right over to that particular vendor invoice for me, so I can make changes, analyze it, etc. And of course, you'd have similar abilities from the checkbook tab. And there is some additional features here. Let's go to our checkbook tab and let's look at, here's a good example. Let's look at this rather large deposit. Notice when I highlight it, I have a details button along the bottom. This allows us to quote-unquote drill down into that deposit slip. And when I do so, I can see that it's actually comprised of a few transactions. So I have, along my top, I have all of the receipts for that particular day, and these are actually all 3 separate checks, all from the carders. So along the top, we see the checks themselves, and on the bottom, we see the payment distributions. So check 3325 was for a deposit on proposal 1. Check 3320 was for a retainer. 3340 was actually 2 separate deposits. So I have additional information here, and if I need to get to that deposit on proposal 2, handy go-to button right there for me as well. Again, I'm already there, and I can make any changes or edits as I might need. Well, that's deposits coming in. How about payments? If we look at a wire or debit card payment I made for Legacy Antiques, I can see I paid $3,600, but I'm not sure what was on that particular payment. I have a details button again, and that gets me to my check or payment detail. And I can say that was actually 2 vendor invoices, one for the dining table and one for a parcel shipment on chairs. I can even have more information here. I have another detail button. Now that's going to show me the accounts that I've actually affected. Accounts payable, of course, I'm going to alleviate that. And I'm going to debit the appropriate cost of goods sold accounts. And even more conveniently, I can see the particular components from the project itself on the bottom grid. So I can get into very detailed or drill down information using our detail buttons. And again, I can use my go-to from here as well. Professional has all of those features as well, of course, and leads us to another concept. There's a very handy transfer function on our checkbook window. So we don't have to struggle with perhaps a journal entry to move a transfer from a checking account into a money market account or between various operating accounts. Nor do I need to make a miscellaneous cash receipt, which I might select the wrong account or just get my numbers assigned backwards. We have the very handy transfer account function down here, which allows us to move funds between accounts quite simply. So if we click our transfer button, get to our transfer cash window, and let's imagine we need to move, oh, I don't know, perhaps $10,000 out of our cash checking operating account into our money market. So I'm going to remove money from the source, I'm going to put it into the destination. Date defaults today's date, but that could be used as the actual date the transfer occurred. We default a transaction description for you. You can adjust that or enhance it if you'd like. Transfer to money market. Professional, of course, has a fiscal period, and let's put in our $10,000. Here's another feature. Notice I don't need to put in commas or decimal places if the decimals are going to be 0. I simply entered in 1 and 4 zeros for 10,000. When I leave that field, Design Manager formats it for me. Little things that make data entry so much faster. Click OK. Sure, Design Manager will always warn us before processing the transfer. And there we go. Immediately I can see a payment or reduction in my cash checking account and a corresponding increase or deposit into my money market. Transfers, very easy with the transfer function, and that's available in both platforms. While we're here, let's take a look at reconciliations. Credit card and checking reconciliations are an integral part of running your business successfully. If you are not reconciling your checkbook, you could have no idea if you've made double payments or if you have payments that are not recorded into your accounting software such as Design Manager. You might be missing very valuable operating expenses or costs of goods sold, which could inappropriately affect your net income, etc. So reconciliations are quite important functions to be done on a regular basis, but they can be time consuming. So we have some features in here to make it a little easier. On our reconciliation window, for one, we have a clear button, and I use this quite frequently myself. Let's imagine that I want to clear everything through the whole month. I can use my clear button, and it gets my clear checks and deposits. By clearing everything, including both sides, deposits and checks, Design Manager has them selected for me. And if a particular transaction actually did not clear, it's much easier to select that one than to collect each one individually. If I just made a horrendous mistake, use clear again, select unclear, and get back to square one. A very handy feature, if I have a voluminous bank statement where I have many, many transactions and it's pages and pages of information, I might be struggling to find a particular number. So I could use my clear button, input a particular amount, and Design Manager immediately found that $360 for me. So the clear window, another feature that's often overlooked, but can make the process of reconciling your bank and credit card accounts a much more manageable task. Another feature that I find underutilized, the concept of tagging. Most of you have used Design Manager previously, and you know how to select or tag an item or component for inclusion on a proposal, invoice, purchase order, etc. And we do so by simply clicking the column of tag. But I may have hundreds or even 1,000 items in a particularly giant project. Selecting each one could be very time consuming. So again, we have some features to help. We have our tag button here, and it's going to allow us to select items on a given proposal, invoice, etc. quite easily. If I want to select everything, I just leave it select tag all, and Design Manager grabs them for me. Say I made a mistake again. I could use tag to untag them all. And there we go. Perhaps we just want to propose the wine cellar to the Helsons. So I could use my tag option, select location, and put in the wine cellar. Upon clicking OK, Design Manager selects all of those for us. And you'll notice that on your invoice window, proposal window, purchase order window, that you have options for all the various selections, even a singular item. If I want to include a particular item as well as the wine chair, I can put that in, and Design Manager will select that as well. The tag button, very handy on all of your document windows. A few other handy features in Design Manager. The concept of status windows. Let's take a look at our project and specifications. We're going to edit our Pennington home in Design Manager. And notice on our project window we have our project tab, our defaults tab, notes and information, but we also have a status tab. This allows you to analyze fiscal information for this project on a single window. And it's divided into two areas. We have our deposits and retainers, where we can see all of our deposits coming in, their application thereof on invoices, the total currently available. The bottom grid shows all of our invoicing, where we can see invoices that have been created, paid, how much we've been invoiced, balance, payments so far, and even our current accounts receivable. So very quickly, you don't need to go to a myriad of different reports or areas. You can use your status tab at the project level to gain that information. Professional has even a little bit more enhanced version of the project status. Here, if we go to our projects, I have a status button, which then gets us to our project status window. And you can see there's some additional information here. We have a summary tab that's going to show all of our client deposits and retainers, how much we requested, how much we've received of the two types of funds, total received, the application thereof, and our current deposit balance. How much invoicing we've done, including total invoice, sales tax, application of deposits, payments, balance due or AR, and even some purchasing information for open POs, etc. And then we can see the detail of all of our deposits and retainers being recorded, and the invoices themselves. And of course, notice that we've conveniently put go-to buttons here. So if I need to reprint invoice 10,001 for the Carters, I can just use my go-to button and I can go ahead and reprint. So a dual function on the project status and professional, tons of fiscal information provided to you, even if you don't have access to some of that information. If you're in the design side or project management side, you may not have access to enter in cash receipts or even enter in invoices. But Design Manager allows you to gain that information so you can provide the clients with any appropriate information that they might need. Along with our project status, we have other statuses, of course. Each item will have its own status tab, which is going to pertain to any proposals that have been created for that particular item, including any deposits that have been received, check number, check date, etc. And the client invoices themselves at the bottom. So we can easily see from here what invoice the item was included upon, has it been paid, is there any balance due. I can also scroll between items from here, another feature. Notice that I'm on item 7 right now. I can use my next and previous arrows to keep my item window up, but quote-unquote scroll through items. So now I'm on item 8, 9, 10, etc. So that keeps the window up, allows me to rapidly review information without going in and out of items. Another hidden trick there are the move next and move previous arrows. Components, of course, will have statuses as well. On the component window, I have an order status. I can see my purchase orders, along with any order tracking information from here. I can see a deposit that has been applied. I can see if it's been acknowledged, received, back order, etc. And once the bills are recorded from the vendors, they'll appear on the bottom vendor invoice grid, showing that the accounts payable side has entered in particular invoice for that good and whether or not a check has been written against it. Again, information that you need to know about a particular component is right where you would imagine it would be, on the window itself. Proposals have their own status window. Whoops. Take a look right here, Documents and Accounting. We can see I might want to focus simply on a particular proposal for the Carters, and I've got a status here. This information is going to show me all the items on that particular proposal and a lot of the fiscal information as well. I requested a deposit. Did I receive it? I sure did. I even have the client's check number. I can see that all of these items have been invoiced, and I can tell that immediately because they are all listed in black. Any items in red would not be invoiced. So I can quickly discern the status of these items on the proposal visually. And I have all of the additional fiscal information here as well. A very handy window is the proposal status because it sort of narrows your focus just down to a particular phase or subset of items that can keep yourself focused on those particular items rather than the project as a whole. And of course, purchase order status, which most of you would know, is where we go and enter in all of our order status information, acknowledgement dates and numbers, receiving information, etc. All of the information necessary to really track the orders themselves. And lastly, I wanted to show one additional feature in the professional platform. Under Project and Specifications, let's put our Hilson project in as an example. We have our Quick Add button, which gets us to our Quick Add line item window. This is a great tool if you're in the professional platform and you want to rapidly enter items without a lot of extra detail. This could be early in the phases of the project where we're trying to quickly generate a budget proposal or something along those lines. And I might say, I'm going to focus on the wine cellar. I can put in as much or as little information as I want. I certainly might not even know the vendor yet. These could be some bar stools. We're going to need 4 of them. Let's imagine that we're going to spend $1,000 each on those, and then we could add them as such. And this allows us to create these items very, very rapidly. I could add another, let's say, some cushions for stools. 4 of those. And there they go. And now I can put in as many of these quick items as I want to. When I'm ready to bring them into the project, I simply use the To Project option, and I can move my items out of the quick add line items and immediately create them into the project. A fantastic tool to get the overall structure of items and components created into the specifications window, and then I can go in and fill in as much extra detail as I want to at a later time. Another handy tool with the Quick Add feature is for accessories. I may be purchasing candles, pillows, all sorts of small items, and I don't need to go through the whole process of items and components in the traditional manner. I can use the Quick Add light items for that feature. That's a wonderful tool that's very overlooked in the professional platform, and those companies I've worked with that I've shown it to in the past have really thought it to be extremely helpful in certain circumstances. And with that, we have spent our last hour looking at a lot of the features in Design Manager that I think can enhance your overall experience in the program itself. And hopefully I've pointed out a few features that you didn't know existed and can use them to really make your Design Manager experience and skill set all that much more refined. I'd like to thank everyone for taking some time out of your day and joining us. Again, stay tuned for future webinars in the future, and I look forward to seeing you all again in the future.